As preppers, one of the biggest ways that we prepare for different emergencies and disasters is by gathering supplies. Doing that will help ensure that we and our loved ones have what we need should the worst happen, but there's always a chance that we may end up needing something. Because of this, it's a good idea to have items that you could barter or trade to get other things that you need. And while barter isn't something you should totally depend on, it is something that you should consider as a backup. The first potential barter item that you could stockpile is food, and this is a good option since many food items are inexpensive, have a long shelf life, are easy to break down, and are things that you can use also. And for this, I'd start with the basics. Dried beans and rice meet all the criteria above, and canned goods can work well also, but I would stick with store brands since they tend to be cheaper. Salt and sugar will be good to stockpile, but I would go ahead and pick up some Ziploc bags to go with them. Having small bags will allow you to break those and other things down into smaller amounts to give you more options while trading. Drink mixes are similar to salt and sugar, and you could get them in bulk quantities like this number 10 can, or you could get them in single serve packets. That's nice since you can have individual amounts ahead of time or just break it up as needed. Then honey's another valuable item that comes in a lot of different sizes. One thing that people would be absolutely desperate for is coffee. Like drink mixes, you can get it in single serve packages or in larger amounts that you could trade whole or break down, and instant coffee can store for many years. Baking soda has a ton of uses when you're cooking or cleaning, and it can also be used as a toothpaste by mixing it with a little water. You could stockpile bottled water for bartering purposes, but I would only do that if you use bottled water and are able to rotate it. But one thing I wouldn't stockpile for bartering though is freeze-dried foods. At around $10 a pouch, it would be difficult to ensure that whatever you're trading it for is worth more. Another thing that you can stockpile for bartering is precious metals. These are a good choice since they'll always be worth something. Even though their value fluctuates, there probably won't be a situation where they're worthless. These can be traded for larger things after a collapse, and they can even be traded in now if you find yourself in hard times financially. You can get different kinds of precious metals ranging from junk silver coins to bars of different weights. But if you're going to do this, I would recommend getting it in smaller denominations because you don't want to end up trading like $300 in precious metals for 12 cans of tuna. Another thing you could stockpile for bartering purposes is different kinds of medical items. If things are bad enough that people are relying on barter to survive, then there's a very good chance that our modern medical infrastructure will be gone, meaning that illnesses and injuries are going to be a big problem. And some of the most valuable items in that situation would be anything related to wound care. Things like bandages, gauze, and antiseptics can be used to help prevent infections that could cause even a small wound to become fatal. You can stock these individually or purchase small kits like these that only cost around $2 or $3 each. You can keep those in your different kits that you may have now and then offload them as needed. Antibiotics would be in high demand since they can prevent and treat infections from wounds and diseases that'll probably make a comeback like dysentery. However, don't overlook common and cheap over-the-counter medications like pain reliever and fever reducers and Pepto. Many people don't realize this, but Pepto actually does a little bit more than help control symptoms. The active ingredient in it, bismuth subsalicylate, actually can help prevent harmful microorganisms from growing in your digestive system. Even though it doesn't get a whole lot of attention, tooth pain can be debilitating and it'll be a big problem if people can't get to a dentist. And if somebody's dealing with that, they'd be desperate to get a hold of something like Oragel that could help alleviate that pain. There's also a lot of people out there like me who suffer from seasonal allergies, and having those kinds of medications could be useful as well. The next group of items you could stockpile for bartering is hygiene items. In addition to helping people stay clean and healthy, many of these are also considered luxury items, so they'll always be in demand. Even though I wouldn't stockpile too much of this because of how much room it takes up, toilet paper is something people will do almost anything for, as evidenced by the MMA style brawls that we saw in grocery stores in 2020. Wet wipes take up a lot less space and can be bought in bulk as baby wipes for a lower cost. Diapers could be good barter items because people will eventually get tired of messing with cloth diapers, but they are very expensive and, like toilet paper, they take up a ton of room. Dental care items, especially small travel-sized toothpaste tubes, would be good items to trade, and then feminine hygiene products would be in high demand as well, and those would be really good to trade since they're individually packaged, so you could trade them by the item or as an entire box. Different kinds of soap and hand sanitizer would be another good thing to have around, and bar soap is particularly useful because it stores very well and it can also be cut down into smaller portions if needed. But one thing that a lot of people overlook is laundry. Most detergents are designed to be used with modern machines, but if things get bad, laundry bar soap would be very useful since it's meant to be used with old school washboards. Deodorant and chapstick may seem less critical, but people would probably still want to have them if they could get them, and chapstick actually has several different uses. They range from soothing cracked knuckles all the way to lubricating firearms and crossbows. Then other things like trash bags and pesticides are good multi-use barter items. Both can be used to help keep people's living areas clean, but trash bags can also be used as ponchos or to protect your gear. And then pesticides can either be used to protect the outside of your home or to protect you from biting insects, which could cause a whole lot of misery during a long-term disaster. Mouse traps would also be good to pick up. I've been able to find multi-packs where they're around $1 each, and those would be good in situations where using poison in a particular area may cause more harm than good. Another useful group of items that you could barter is fuel, and most people's minds will probably go towards gasoline and diesel, but those may not be the best for bartering. Both of those tend to have a shorter shelf life than some other fuels, and since they take up a lot of room, most people aren't going to have enough space where they live to store a whole lot of it, so there's a good chance that any of it that you do have, you're probably going to want to use for your own purposes. Propane would be a much better option for bartering since it has a long shelf life and can be used for several different purposes, including generators, grills, and heaters. You can also store propane in a lot of different quantities. For example, you could trade a 20-pound cylinder for a large or very high-value item, or you could trade a couple of the little 1-pound bottles for something smaller. Then lighter fluid is another thing that you could trade. But if we're in a long-term situation, there's a good chance that oil lamps and hurricane lanterns could make a comeback, and if that were to happen, then kerosene and lamp oil would be in high demand. Picking those up in larger quantities would help ensure that you have what you and your family need, but still have some left over for trade. Then, even though these aren't necessarily fuel, candles are another good barter item along with batteries. And for batteries, you could stockpile the cheaper heavy-duty batteries just to have as many of them as you could, but my inclination is to just go ahead and get something a little bit better in case I need to use it. Then another kind of item that you can stockpile for barter is inexpensive survival gear. While a lot of survival gear is expensive and you probably would not want to trade it if you could help it, there's still plenty of things that are available for under 20 bucks, many of them much less than that. On the higher end, Sawyer mini filters would be good trade items since they serve a very important function. They're easy to show someone how to use, and they're only around $20 each. You could pick up a multi-pack of them so that you can spread them out through your different kits and then have the extras for trade. Another thing you could get a multi-pack of and break up is cheap flashlights. While these aren't as nice as what most of us would want for an EDC flashlight, it'll still probably be fine, especially if somebody needs one really bad and it comes with batteries. Matches would be good barter items because even non-preppers know how useful they are for starting fires. You could pick up a couple of boxes of them today and then store them for several years, and like other things, you can trade them by the box or put maybe 50 of them in a Ziploc bag and trade them that way. Lighters, of course, would be good barter items as well, but they cost more to stockpile. That being said, they're easier to use, they take up less room, and you'd probably end up using any that you didn't trade yourself. Ferro rods could potentially start hundreds or thousands of fires if somebody knows how to use them. You could trade large ones like this one, but you may get more bang for your buck by storing several of these smaller ones to trade. Mylar blankets are another item that you can pick up as part of a multi-pack. The ones that you get that way won't be heavy duty, but they're very inexpensive and they're better than nothing. There's also a lot of fishing gear that you can pick up for a very low cost. Things like hooks, lead weights, and lures would be in very high demand if you live anywhere near a body of water. The next group of stockpile items that you could barter is things that can be used for maintenance and repair. Fasteners like nails and screws would be in high demand since people will need to make repairs to their homes or other structures, but nails would probably be a better choice for trade since power tools may not be available, at least on a large scale. Nuts and bolts would be useful for repairing different kinds of mechanical equipment and for building certain structures. Different kinds of cordage, including paracord and rope, would be good barter items since they have so many different uses, and along that same vein, duct tape, electrical tape, and zip ties could be very easy to trade as well. Then don't overlook things to repair clothing. Small sewing kits like this one would be good to stockpile since they can be used in different kits that you may have, And if they're traded, they could give somebody else most of what they need to make repairs and different kinds of clothing and gear. But one thing to remember about barter is it'll always come with some risk, especially when you're trading physical goods. When you're doing that, you're basically saying that I have enough of this particular thing that I can afford to give some of it up for something else, and some people might see that as an opportunity. So when you're bartering, you always want to take security very seriously to avoid being robbed or worse. I would avoid doing any trades by yourself because it'd be a perfect opportunity for a group of people to overwhelm you, and also wouldn't do any trades near where you live just because you don't want people knowing where the rest of your supplies are. Also have the means to defend yourself and your supplies, and don't trade anything that could be used against you later, like ammunition. But probably a better way to go about bartering is to trade your skills, because while that's still not 100% risk free, you're going to be more valuable alive than you would be dead. One of the most useful skills to trade during a long-term survival situation would be medical skills. People like doctors, nurses, and EMTs have valuable skills that would make them vital members of their community, and if any of those folks have experience with things like medicinal herbs, they'd be even more valuable. Then, since people are going to need to rely more on animals, veterinarians would also be important. Skilled tradesmen would be in demand, especially those who are creative and can repurpose different items for critical tasks. Mechanics, particularly those who have experience working on diesel equipment like tractors, would be valuable, along with electricians who can rig up solar or wind power equipment. Then other craftsmen like carpenters and blacksmiths would also be important to have and could easily trade their skills. Then if you have useful skills you can teach, especially survival skills, then your knowledge is another thing that you can barter with. Then if you have certain types of equipment, then you could use it to create a service that you could trade. If, for example, you have a pond and a water filter, then you could purify water and trade that to other members of your community. You could use a solar generator to charge other people's devices in exchange for a little food, water, or something else that you may need. But like I mentioned earlier, barter should not be the main focus of your prep. So before you get too involved with it, be sure you have your basics taken care of first. Now, if you want to see what a long-term collapse situation might look like that would require people to barter, then check out this video. Or if you want a better idea of how much of particular items you should be stockpiling, then check out this video. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.